Okay, get everything kind of set up here. Let that all go, and we should be live and ready. So, welcome in to yet another Shakuhachi live stream. And I'm going to be solo today, but that's okay. Uh, our let's see, what is his? I'm hearing myself somewhere, so I got to make sure I put this down. Okay, there we go. Our producer, our in-house producer, Linus is actually getting some eye surgery today, and it happens to be early in the morning, so he will not be able to join us, unfortunately. So I have to man down the fort myself. That's okay, but we'll be able to hold it down, I think, most likely without any uh, without any issues here. So I think I just have to mute up here. That's where it is. Okay, very good. So we have a couple questions on doc today, but as usual, always feel free to write something in the chat. Happy to answer your questions about this. And just to make sure that we actually play something today, to make sure we say that we actually played Shakuhachi on the Shakuhachi podcast here, I will play something. Okay, there we go. So now we have officially met the standards. It is a Shakuhachi podcast because we played a note of Shakuhachi. Italo, welcome in. Eric, it's always good to see you from Chicago. And of course, we have a new Shoten Lesson Series subscriber who is Lord Takahashi. So, Lord Takahashi, dozo yoroshiku onegai itashimasu. So, there we have it. Now, of course, there will be more playing today. We're not going to just play just that one little tiny poor row. We will have some questions, I'm sure, from people and also that are already pre-prepared that will lead me to give an example or something. Okay, so our first question comes from the Discord. How does the Utiguchi shape and material influence tone production compared to Western flutes? Okay, so with the Western flute, and I'm not going to be able to say too much about this, but with the Utiguchi, the biggest part of it is not even necessarily the material, though the material and the sharper that the edge is, the more instantaneous the sound is going to be. So that is one of the aspects of having like a different material in here. If it's um like, let's say you have like ivory versus wood versus acrylic versus anything like that, that material really doesn't make that big of a difference. I think some people might say, and probably there probably is something different, but without having the exact same flute and then having it just with different materials and input, there's really no way to know. But in general, just having an insert will have the sound be sharper, so that the sound is more instantaneous, as well as the utiguchi itself being sharper. So also the sound will become more instantaneous. The bigger aspect of the utiguchi is the depth of it. So the old style shakuhachis were not that deep. They only had like maybe a millimeter, sometimes maybe up to a millimeter and a half of depth. Where the modern shakuhachis, they go anywhere from 2.5 to 3. Um, and then on some of the even more modern ones, they dig deeper to about 4. So the deeper that you make the utiguchi, the louder that the flute's going to be. Now there are other ways to make the flute louder, but that's just one of the ways. The issue, though, is that if it's too deep, you're not going to have, or it's much more difficult to have a really nice, full, softer register. So having a deeper utiguchi is not always the best thing. For some flutes, it works out well, but that's where what the utiguchi does in its shape. So the deeper you go, the louder. The more shallow you go, the more warm and rich, softer ends that you'll get for the flute. So it's a really, really good question, and it's really important because when you're looking at flutes or you're trying them out, and you see that utiguchi cut is really, really deep, you can expect it to be a louder flute. And so one of the things you should check is, how does its lower register speak? Or how does its softer end speak? If the softer end speaks really well, then it might be a really great flute for you to pick up and try, and maybe consider as a purchase. If its lower end is super hard to control, it's difficult to get the pitch up where you need it to be. It might be something I would reconsider. But if you're like just only want to play loud all the time, then that would be a great choice to have something with a much deeper utiguchi. So really, really great question here. I want to remind people that we still have this Gyokusui flute up for sale, and this really is one of the better Gyokusui flutes that I've played. I've really enjoyed working with this one and playing it. So it's on the website. It's for 1250, and I wanted to showcase that one a little bit because it is under market value. So it's a really good buy for it. And here's how this one sounds. We'll do my classic little melody here that I always play. I have to remember that yokosu, you don't have to pull up on the reeds. They're actually right in tune where they are. Some makers make it so that the re is slightly flat on the flutes, so that you have to actually pull up a little bit or tighten the embouchure, and others don't. Others it's just kind of a straight blowing across there. But anyways, that's the Gyokusui flute going for $12.50, $9.99 worldwide shipping. Okay, let's get on to the next question, and of course the chat is open for yourself for any questions that you may have. Okay, next question is, how do different schools approach vibrato, and what does this say about their aesthetic priorities? Okay, so if you're thinking about like vibrato in the classical sense, right? On honkyoku music, there really isn't any, right? Like if there is, it's a an ornamentation on top of the notes. But classically speaking, you wouldn't really have like a wide range of diverse vibratos happening on these classical honkyoku pieces. So I don't think that there's really a clear cut answer to like how schools would do that, because it's not within like it's not what their primary concern is. Their primary concern is to allow the bamboo speak, right? So it's breath and bamboo and the tone color of the instrument. But that being said, today there are lots of people who do, even within those traditions, play with lots of vibrato. And I wouldn't like nail it down to one school that does something, like does vibrato this way, or this school does the vibrato this way. It's going to be a lot more, how do individuals do their vibrato. Now you'll have some people who feel most comfortable with vibrating side to side, like the yoko yuri, and you'll have other people who are more comfortable with the take yuri, which is doing it with the hand. Now, on our membership, we have a video that goes over all the different types of vibratos. So if you're interested to go in more in the detail about how to do each one of those techniques, consider joining our membership. But I think that the question has a flaw in it, which is that the vibrato is not a technique that would be universally and across the board utilized through a piece, but rather it's an ornamentation that is very subjective and individualized. So you can't really nail down like that's how vibrato is done in this school, because each individual as they approach it is so unique. Um, and in some schools, like they don't they just don't have that. They have something else going on, so putting in vibrato would actually be kind of strange. So for example, if you think about the Kimpuryu school, so all the northern school music, they're busy doing komibuki. So if you have komibuki and you're vibrating, I think it kind of gets rid of the point of having the komibuki, and the vibrato just is almost like a detriment. It gets in the way of it, right? So if you can imagine kind of going right, that removes the flavor of the komibuki. That's the kind of sound that I'm expecting from like a northern school. So in that case, it'd be no vibrato for sure. Um, in like a school like the Oshu region, there's a recordings of Takahashi Kuzan where he's not doing necessarily what I would call vibrato, but like a yoko or a yuri komi. So that yuri komi, he's constantly adding in all of these head movements where he'll go. I suppose you could probably call that vibrato, but I think is that like he's actually aiming to get another pitch, like, and you hear that in a lot of old shoe pieces too, where people will play something like if on a slower version they might get something like. Like, is that vibrato? I don't think so. It's pretty distinct of a technique where the of that yoko, the yurikomi and the vibrato. So it's an interesting question. I would say maybe what would be more interesting is to see, kind of take like a poll and of like shakuhachi players and see what type of vibrato do you use, right? And well, you know what? Actually, we can do that right now. So why don't we make a poll, and we'll ask the audience. And so let me pull up a question here. Okay, 10, not 10 super chats. How do I make a poll again? I can't remember how to do things. Here we go. Start a poll. Let's see. How do you do vibrato? And I'm going to add a couple options here. So we'll do the yoko, which is side to side. We'll do tate, which is up and down. We'll do mawashi, which is circular. And then we can also say take, or we'll do this. We'll say other or more than one. So there you have it. So maybe we can kind of figure out what everybody's doing here. You said Kyle Chome has a recording of Sagariha where he combines both of them. Yeah, so he's not a Kimpu player. He's a student of oh gosh, what is that guy's name? Sogawa, right? And so like if you want like well, I'm thinking of the answer more in a classical terms, right? So what does a classical Kimpu player do, right? Of that actual school and lineage. So I'm thinking about like Nick Blondo, Dr. Yamada, and friends, up that are in Aomori Hirosaki playing. Um, and they're not doing vibrato stuff. And all the older recordings I've heard, I haven't heard one single person put in vibrato. And I've probably heard maybe three or four different individuals that do that. Even Jin Nyodo, by the way. Jin Nyodo is originally a Northern School player. So if you listen to Jin Nyodo, his way of doing things is actually pretty darn close to like exactly what was happening in the North. Some of the pieces that he plays, there's like variations of them that are not original, so they're like innovations upon the originals. But the playing style is Northern School, and I'm very confident that Nick would agree with me on that one too, because I've heard him say it. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking there. So Dakatar says that he does the head up and down and the regular Western style vibrato as well. Yeah, some people do the Western style vibrato. The problem for me with the Western style vibrato is it sounds a little bit too um it starts to sound like NAF, right? The Native American flute. And I wanted to really distinguish the sound of the shakuhachi from the NAF. Okay, let's get into another question and we'll check back on our poll and see how people are answering that in just a little bit. So we'll look at this question now. Okay, what role does memorization play in the shakuhachi tradition, and is notation ever a crutch? I don't think notation can ever be a crutch because there's not enough in it to get overly focused on it. The music is so the written music just doesn't have enough information. Now the modern scores do; they have a little bit more, but even then, I mean, you don't get anything about tempo. You get nothing about expressive qualities. There's no technical text, or very little, if ever. There's no rhythmic indications. There's no timbral indications. There's no dynamic indications. All you get is the notes in like a subjective length, or a length that really doesn't necessarily even matter, because those written in metered notations are a modern invention. They're not actually authoritative in the like original composition sense. So I think memorization is a very, very important part of it because of that. But at the same time, one thing that you have to keep in mind is that memorization is not just a black and white issue here. It's Memorization has gradations, right? And so, like, I can sing through every single piece that are in all the books that I teach, but I may not necessarily be able to pick them up and just play them. But I have all of the pieces memorized. I know what happens at every single spot. And so I have those pieces locked down, packed. I know exactly how I like to play them and the different techniques that are associated with different sections of the music. But I would never feel comfortable just going up there without any music and saying, okay, I'm going to play through every single piece in all of the books that I teach, because those scores serve as little as points where I can say, um oh, what's that next part? Oh, that's right, that's how it goes, right? And then the memory becomes jogged, and then I'm ready to go, and I can express myself better. So now some people, they might overthink things, and the music actually functions as a crutch for them, because as they're looking at it, they're going, oh well, I'm not quite sure how I want to do this now, or I'm having a second thought. Then you have issues there. So, okay, we have a good question here from Dak Qatar. Does one need to practice Zen meditation to be a true Shakuhachi player? No. Do you practice Zen yourself? Um, I suppose, I guess, like, what sense? Like, what sense do you mean Zen? Because there's Japanese Zen and American Western Zen are very different, actually. Um, Especially like the recent Zen. Now, like principles and like dharmas and stuff like that. Okay, we're not necessarily talking about that, but actually, like, in the true sense of what you mean, as like aesthetically, philosophically, ethically, like that kind of thing is really important. As a philosophy, or even as like a religious practice, I don't do Zen. I'm not. I mean, I've studied it. I've read a bunch of books on it. I'm interested, but I'm not interested in practicing it. But I know people who do. Um, yeah, I don't think it has any bearing on your ability to play, or your ability to express yourself. Because what's important about shakuhachi is being natural. And so, if you're gonna, let's say if you're gonna force yourself to do Zen when you don't necessarily have that interest in it, or that drive to do so, or if you come from a different religious tradition, I don't think there's any issue to like to not do it and then make it a part of your own individual practice, right? So if you're already doing something, you already have something that you're naturally doing, and that you like, and you want to incorporate shakuhachi with it because you like shakuhachi, that's a much better path to take, and that's a lot more natural. And in turn, I think that that's actually a lot more Zen, even though it doesn't incorporate Zen, because you're just doing what you naturally do, or naturally resonating with. You resonate with the shakuhachi, but you also resonate with this philosophy. You resonate with the shakuhachi, but you also resonate with this religious ideology or something. Okay, so Italo Rodriguez says, I've seen a lot of your videos and I've been developing a lot. Oh, well, thank you, and I'm glad you're getting better. About Honkyoku, regarding the Honshirabe and the third line, you do the U note with more medis than there are on the notation. Yes. Okay. So optional. So that's part of the um like the expressive part of, like, so when we were just talking about the music prior to, and we said, is the music functioning as a crutch? So if you look at that line and you look at that notation and you say, oh, there's only this much movement in that line, I can only do the amount of movement that's in the line, that would be a misunderstanding of the value of the score. So then you could say, well, I actually don't want to do that. I don't want to do that additional dip there, or I don't want to do that many Yuri komis, or I don't want to do a Nayashi like that. That's so deep and slow. You have a very large range of options to choose from. So, for example, in that third line, if you want to go like even that opening, do you go or that's not a thing that you can choose. Right, that's an option. That's an option as well. So what I recommend for people to do is you listen to just in like a plethora of different recordings, old and new, and what you do is you create a list of all the ways that it's been played that you like, that resonate with you. When you go, that's I like the way so and so does it, and then describe it, right? Write it out in words how it sounds to you. Okay, then go back and listen to another person, and then you say, I don't like that, and I think it might even be worthwhile if you to say so and so plays it like this, and I don't like this aspect of it. Right, that way you're learning both. You're learning what you like and what you don't like, because knowing what you don't like is just as important as knowing what you do like. Okay. Now, if you like the way I do it, then write it down and express it and all that kind of stuff, and see how it goes. Okay, so looking at the poll really quickly, it's only been 10 minutes, but we'll let it run just a little bit longer. But so far, we have 43% of people are doing yoko, which is side to side. Tate, 0%. So no one does the up and down. That's fascinating. Circular mawashi, 29%. Other, which is more than one. Other or more than one. So it could be like the Western style. Unfortunately, YouTube only limits us to 4 questions, but there's or 4 statements, and you can't pick more than one, unfortunately. But that's that kind of issue of the polls here. So we're limited, but maybe we'll do a more intense poll somewhere else and kind of figure out what everybody is doing. I feel like that's a job for Linus. Should we just keep giving the in-house producer a bunch of jobs? We can kind of list up all the things that we want him to do, so when he comes back, he's got a nice little pile of like, hey, we need this, 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 this. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Okay, so I would like to do this. There's a couple things on docket just to advertise really quickly. We do have still a bunch of flutes on the website. A couple beginner, some pro stuff, and some interesting finds, including that Gyokusui I showed before, a Yamaguchi Shido flute. Everything, the Yamaguchi Shido and the Gyokusui are under market value, so they're really good buys. Normally, Yamaguchi Shido flutes start at 4,000. This one's at 3,500. So it's a very unique find. It's hard to find them in the condition where they haven't been messed around with, and like the bores haven't been like completely reshaped and stuff. But yeah, so go check that out if you're interested in that. Next thing I want to remind everybody is that if you're looking for an affordable way to start, grow, or deepen your knowledge of shakuhachi, this is a great place to be. So join the membership. There's hundreds of videos, and there's more stuff that we're making every single month. I try to give as much as I possibly can to it. We have the like shakuhachi honkyokus, got contemporary music, technique theory, pedagogy, and more. So all those things. And of course, we have a couple people here like Italo, who is on the membership. Eric is on the membership. So if you guys don't mind putting in a couple words about in the chat about how you guys are enjoying or not enjoying the membership. But I suppose if you were not enjoying it, you wouldn't be on it, would you? Or else it's kind of like some sort of like aesthetic statement that, that I'm just unaware of. But anyways, we also have a new member today, Lord Takahashi, who's also on it. So hopefully he will enjoy it as well and come for one of the live streams to tell us how he is enjoying or not enjoying it. Lastly, before we move on to our next question, I just want to also state that we have a Discord. and we are slowly approaching 600. Since the last time I was announcing it, I think I said we had like 570 something. We have 578. So I'd really like us to get to that 600 number. So if you are not a part of the Discord or you don't know what Discord is, please join the Discord. The Discord is basically a platform where video gamers used to go to hang out, and so they would, while they're playing video games that don't necessarily have online video or chat features, you can do it through there. And then you can also type and stuff, and you have like a history of everything that you guys like did on your video game and whatever. So yeah, we basically transformed it into a Shakuhachi Discord, like so instead of video games and stuff like that, it's all Shakuhachi related. So really, really great place to be. I really enjoy actually reading through a lot of the comments. We have people who are of all walks of life, all over the world, different expertise. Some people are absolute, beginners, they're bamboo sprouts, and other people have been playing shakuhachi for 20, 30 years. So it's diverse and very friendly. As Linus says, it's probably one of the most friendly places on the internet. So great. Italo says the membership is amazing. There's a wide range of topics. I find Taidu very pedagogical. So yeah, that's why I'm here every Sunday. Besides, the community is very helpful. There are many topics, hangouts, technical stuff, etc., etc., etc. And that's right. That's correct. And thank you very much for the nice words. Let's get on to another question. Okay. What is this? Sui naniha? Sui ko ha? Let me look this up really quickly. I'm not familiar with this. So, ご存知ですかと聞いてるけど、全然わからないです。水筋靴。水筋靴。Yeah, I don't know about this. 聞いたことないです。すみません。ちょっと説明してもらえませんか? Okay, and yes, Svenja also brings up a really good point. We have lots of live events too. So she says life events. Well, they're kind of like life events, aren't they? They're very impactful. But on the Discord, we have also some things like teaching things that we do. So there's free lessons that happen in group settings. We also have community challenges. We have hangouts. Study groups and stuff like that. So really lots of stuff there to absorb. But anyways, let's go ahead and get on to our next question, and then we'll find out what this Sui King Kutsu is, and we'll figure that out in a little bit. Okay, what are the challenges of composing new music for shakuhachi with non-Japanese idioms? Ooh, that's a deep question. Okay, so as a composer, I have a lot of, as someone who has worked with a lot of composers, I've worked with probably now more than 30 different people across, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 countries, maybe a little bit more than that. I have to think about that actually. I can tell you what works really well and what doesn't work well. So I get a lot of one of two things. One thing that can happen a lot with the new compositions is that it sounds so much like a Western flute. And what they're looking for is basically you to sound shakuhachi-y, but playing a Western flute line, right? So they want Western flute music, but they want more of a shakuhachi sound. That to me would be like a dead giveaway that you should just write it for Western flute. Now, the other end of the spectrum, which is also problematic, is that I get things that are just riddled with shakuhachi techniques, right? So it's just like, oh, I'm going to do koro koro here, 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 here. But it doesn't actually say anything about the piece, or it's just muraiki all over the place, or they want certain techniques that don't necessarily make any sense in the context of where they're put, right? They're just kind of put in there for just the sake of being put in there. So that's the first like warning for people who are writing shakuhachi music, is that you don't want it to be or at least for me, I don't think it's aesthetically satisfying to just write a Western flute piece and then put it on the shakuhachi. Like even when I do arrangements of flute pieces, I make changes to make it much more of a shakuhachi piece. So, for example, when I played Debussy, like when I played Shrink, or the what is that, Sphinx, right? I did there. I added in a lot of things. Right now, I kept all of the original things, right? Like the melodies, the notes, and all that kind of stuff. But I added in things in order to make it more like a shakuhachi piece. Okay. Now, on the other end, what's hard is, or what becomes more difficult, is when you have a piece that has all of these unique shakuhachi sounds, but they're just kind of thrown in there without any context. That makes it hard to perform the piece or to make something that has a strong narrative that, drives it forward. So let me go back to the question one time, because I think I need to, refresh my memory. So what are the challenges of composing new music for shakuhachi with non-idioms? So, I mean, idioms in terms of like I guess I'm a little bit confused on the question too, because an idiom in classical music, like, are we talking of like when someone goes right, like that, like a 1 4 5 1, like that doesn't necessarily have any sort of problems. There's no issue there on that. Or if there's like certain musical phrases and what, that doesn't necessarily make any. There's no issues there. I think maybe because like we could even say like highly chromatic music, but that's not necessarily an idiom. I mean, that's a particular composer's voice. So, um, very chromatic fast lines don't necessarily work on the shakuhachi. It can, but you have to know the instrument really well in order to make that happen. So I don't know if there's any Western idioms that come to mind right away that say that's an issue on composing new music for shakuhachi. Nothing comes to mind right now. Rather, it's the utilization of traditional Japanese idiom in the Western classical music. That's where I find more of an issue, because they're so out of context. Now, sometimes they're done really, really well. There's a piece that I just did with composer Talia Amar from the University of Jerusalem Academy of Music and Dance. It's called Waterfall's Voice. And so this is Shakuhachi in electronics. And this is a really, really well composed piece, especially for shakuhachi. I could, when I was working through it, and I think I wrote about this actually in my blog, that this piece actually felt like there was it was a shakuhachi player who wrote it, but there was a couple spots where you'd go, that doesn't necessarily work. But the way that she wrote it, I knew exactly what she wanted, and it's kind of hard to explain like what I mean by that, but because like how the phrase was and what came before it ever, because it was so highly contextual, I knew exactly what she wanted. And so that would be an example, that particular piece, especially in more in the avant-garde electronic music, that would be a really good example of one of those pieces. Let's see, electronic avant-garde. No, I think that's my answer for that. I don't think there's anything more I need to say about that particular area. Yep. Okay, so let's open it up for more questions on shakuhachi stuff, and I can also hop over to the Discord and see what's happening. And I think I might end just a little bit earlier today. Usually, the banter with Linus extends our conversation where we never hit enough points, and so here, because I'm just talking to myself, we can get through things a lot faster, which is not necessarily good, not necessarily bad. It's just another way. I actually prefer the live banter with Linus. It's a lot more enjoyable. But yeah, great content today from Eric. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm trying my best here. Holding down the fort alone. Linus always asks really interesting questions that can bring us to a new area. Well, sometimes it's also a new area that's unrelated to shakuhachi whatsoever. Okay, could you please demonstrate Muraiki from Italo? Yes, of course I can. Okay, so we have to remember what muraiki is and what muraiki isn't. Okay, muraiki isn't just breathy sounds; it's the rolling sound of the shakuhachi. The note rolls and it's jumping between otsu and kan. That is the muraiki effect. Yeah. That that flute I had a couple days ago. Um, well, I posted the video 2 days ago, but I've had it for about 4 days. It was that 2.5 G Mori flute. If you want to hear like just a really juicy, beautiful muraiki, go listen to that video. Because that G Mori flute, oh man, it's so good. It has a such a nice muraiki. See G Mori 2.5, and it is sold. Someone already picked it up and bought it. I was surprised and not surprised. I thought that okay, it's a rare flute. You know, it's a one of a kind that that Yozan has never made before. Like my 2.5 is divided into two pieces because it was cut and then mended for its to make the size fit. So that one was so rare because it was one piece, and so I thought, okay, it's either going to pique a lot of people's interest and it's going to sell almost right away, or it's going to be up there for like months and months and months, and then someone's going to buy it. It wasn't going to be like a middle ground sort of thing, and I was right, and I thought it was going to be more on the longer end. That's where I was wrong. But man, that flute has such a great muraiki, and I really enjoy playing it on that one. Now, muraiki also fluctuates too. It's a difficult it's a it's a difficult technique to control, right? Where you say I want this many, RPM, you know, for the technique. That's a difficult aspect of it to control. And every flute's going to respond to muraiki differently. Like this flute, I don't think this flute has the best muraiki on roll. Sometimes it does if I kind of get in the groove with it and the flute warms up. But I think it has a much better one on Su and Ray. Yeah, the Tsu is really nice. And there's a nice one, that kind of fluttering sound on of it there. So, and Adalo says that he loves that characteristic in shakuhachi music. Yeah, I like it when players use that too. The only issue is that if you start overusing it, which I definitely was in that category for a little while, it can be very difficult on the ears, right? Like it can be exhausting. We call that kikizurai, right? Which is like hard to listen to. But here I think is the better expression for it. The ears become tired, right? Or they become fatigued, and they need something else. That's why we want to have dynamicism or dynamics in our music. Do you make the shakuhachis you sell? No, I do not. Yozan makes them. So Yozan is a guy in Tokyo. He's actually originally from Wakayama. He's been making shakuhachi for over 50 years. I think we're actually almost now at 60 years because he's 60. Oh no, we're still 50 years. He started when he was 18, I believe, 18 making flutes. So yeah, so it's been just over 50 years now, 5 decades. Whew, can't imagine. And he studied with Chikuzen Tamai, who is a legendary shakuhachi maker in the Kansai region. Are there muraikis without that flutter tone? So then it's no longer muraiki. Then it would be like a sorane, which is more of an airy sound. So yeah, the airy depth would be sorane, and that's where you get something like like that. That would be the sorani technique. And sometimes you'll get a few flutters in there that are kind of accidental sounds. But yeah, the sorani technique is a little bit different. I also have a video on this on the in the membership as well. So really nice plug there for the Chuden level membership. We have the technique series, so you can go and check out that video as well if you're on the Chuden membership. It's a cult the technique series, so we go over all the different types of like rearticulations, all the different types of breathing styles, special techniques, and how to practice them, and so on. And there's a video there too. Well, I think it's the video I'm probably most proud of in that technique series, which is on tone and color. Okay, so now I do want to bring up another thing. There's two more little advertisement pieces here that I would like to talk about today. The first thing is ways to support the channel. So we've come up with some other ways for people to support. The first way is to buy all of the merch and fluff on the website. So we have new t-shirts, new sweaters like this one. We have cups, stickers, all that kind of stuff. And all of that, goes back into the Shakuhachi world. We hire for people to do like interviews. We'll do scholarship, hiring people to write articles, doing translations. Right now, we have somebody who's writing an article for us on Ueda-ryu. We also have somebody who's doing translations on some scholarly work from Japan by Makihara Ichiro. We also have somebody who's doing an article on Ichion Jobutsu, and so one note to Buddhahood, and kind of where that comes from and some of its background, and also some of the misunderstandings of it. And we're also in the process of getting permission to translate a book on Honkyoku by a very famous scholar in Japan who has since passed away. So we are doing a lot of stuff with that, and it is expensive. That the book translation that we're looking at is probably going to cost us anywhere from 2,000 just for the translation itself is 2,500. For like copyright stuff and getting all those permissions, that's going to cost a lot more as well. So it's not cheap, and well, but it's worth it. It's the stuff that needs to be done in order to keep Shakuhachi alive. It's providing the materials, getting translations, and informing people on as much as we can about Shakuhachi. So some ways to do that outside of just buying t-shirts and stuff, you can join the membership. So join the membership. There's a bunch of different tiers here. YouTube does take a pretty hefty percentage of it, but that's fine. They offered the platform. It makes it a lot easier for us to get connected. Fine. The next thing too that we have is a donation link. So for the donation, you can do one time, you can set it up, and you can set it up so it's once a month, or you can do it where it's just one time. You can do $1, you can do $1 million. Please do $1 million, and that will help us with getting all the things that we want to get done for livening and broadening the Shakuhachi world. We do have a lot of projects that are also other, like say, for example, I'm doing work with Nick Belando as well as a Finnish Shakuhachi player, and I do have somebody else on dock too that we're working to grow our own community. So it's not just me. I don't look. I can provide a lot of this stuff too, but I'm only one person. I want to get other people's opinions and other people's perspectives, and so that's why we have people that come do interviews. It's why I'm signing up with a lot of other people to do stuff. So consider going to the donation link to also make this stuff happen. Be really, really appreciative. Let's go back to our poll really quickly, and then we'll have one more update. Okay, so how do you do vibrato? Yoko, side to side, 50%. Mawashi, 25%. Other, more than one, 25%. So it looks like most people favor the Yoko. I tend to favor the Yoko and the Mawashi myself. So those are the kind of two that I use. So very nice. So I'm really glad that is. We'll end that poll, and we'll maybe create one that's a little bit more in-depth later. As for a pre-purchase to the book translation that we're going to do, we cannot do that yet because we don't have permission to translate it. So once we have that done and we are on course to having that happen, we actually have a date in mind for it. Once we get a little bit closer to it, yes, there will be a pre-purchase portal for that. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that if you are really interested in the old style of playing Shakuhachi, my friend Nick Belando is hosting a course for Hitoyogiri. It's starting pretty soon. It's going to be in July, so you could get yourself one of these Hitoyogiri. If you go to that link I just posted, about that blog post, it actually has the just go to the more information, and then you can actually go to his website and purchase one of the onmyo hitoyogiris. So you can place an order there. It's 475 plus shipping. And then there is our Hitoyogiri Beginnings, the Oshi course, the summer mode, which starts in July. So let me post the direct link to this because I think that this will be really helpful too. So here's the direct link to learning all that kind of stuff. So just to give you an idea of this Edo style music. So this is early Edo music, but the pieces are much older. The pieces are from Muromachi period in some cases. So let me just play you a little bit of the sound here so you can get a feel of it. Okay, so this gives you a little bit of a color of how this music works. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, definitely check out all of the links that are related to this, and we'd love to see you. I'll tell you why I'm so into this. Um, I think it's part of me just being like I always running against the grain. William Malm, in his seminal work, Japanese Instruments and Japanese Music, or I think it's Japanese Music and its Instruments. He wrote about the Hitoyogiri very briefly, and he said no one plays it anymore, and it's unlikely that it's ever going to make a revival. And it's like, bet. I just thought to myself, we'll see about that. So when we had our first course, we had a lot of people sign up. And now, naturally, with courses and just how things work, and it's just the philosophy of people, or the way these people are, um, you know, people realize it's not for them, so they quit, right? But we have a lot of people, more than half of them, continued all the way to the end, to this our first kind of round of doing this. And so there are 5 courses because there are 5 modes that we learn. 4 of the modes are based on all the modes are based on seasons, and you're going, but there's only 4 seasons, so you think. So there's actually a season in Japan which is called doyo, which the first. It's an 18-day transitional period between one season to the next. So between winter and spring, there's 18 days where you would play the doyo mode, which is ichikotsu, and there you have it. So then with that, you have 5 modes. You have music to play during different music to play throughout the year with different fingerings and tunings and so on. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, I can't recommend it more. We also go through a lot of Edo period text. And so there's really cool like Jodo Shinshu quotes, or Jodo Shu quotes, Zen quotes, I mean a very wide range of just really interesting textual analysis that we do and go through. And so it's a balance between enjoying it as a casual passion, as well as a little bit of a scholastic adventure as well. And as Fenya says, I wish there was more time in the day. I know, I feel that too. I wake up at 5 a.m. every single day, and I don't go to sleep until midnight pretty much. And there's still not enough time in the day. It's just not there. We need a 25-hour day. If I had one more hour, see, but everybody says that too. It's like when they start making a little bit more. If I just had this much more money, and then they start having that much more money, and they go, but if I just had that much more, right? We always are, greedy and taking more and more. So, with that being said, be very thankful for the time that you have, because time is very precious and it's the one asset that you can never make more of. So be satisfied with it, be nice to each other, join us in the Discord, and I will see you guys next time for the next live stream, with Linus, who will be able to see clearly once again. I'm preparing. Maybe I should play. I can see clearly now. The rain has gone. I'll play that on Shakuhachi for him next time when he comes. Don't tell him. All right. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.